It's Q&A time. What is up, guys, and welcome to another Kim TV episode. This is a really special one because we're tackling your toughest marketing, business, and life questions in this episode. So I'm super excited because I asked you last week if you had any questions that you wanted me to answer personally about your business, about your life, about marketing, about trends, anything related to online business, or, you know, just my own personal life. And you guys, per usual, came through with some amazing questions that you posted here on the YouTube channel. If you're if you're listening to this on the podcast, that is where I asked that question, and I also posted about it on Instagram. So between Instagram and email, because I, let my email peeps know, of course, my VIP list needs to know before everyone else. So between email, Instagram, YouTube, we got tons of questions, and we're gonna dive right in because there's a lot of them, and I want to cover as many as possible in this episode. We might do series number 2, so if you'd like for me to do another episode answering the questions that we didn't get to in this specific lesson, let me know. Let me know on the YouTube channel in the comment section below, and if you're watching this on Facebook or you're listening in on the podcast, reach out to me via email. I'd love to hear from you. So anyway, let's get into question number 1. Alright, so the first question comes from Kylie Samal, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering your last name, Kylie. She asks, I'd love to hear anything you have to say about growing a location-independent business. Location-independent business. I understand they typically have good internet and whatnot, but I'm wondering about tools I recommend to make this easier. Client meetings, how to find a VA or other contractors, routines that you've put in place to automate or make things easier. Do clients ever act hesitant to do business with you since they're not able to physically come and sit in front of you? That sort of thing. I hope that's enough info. Always see videos about using ConvertKit or Trello or whatever, but I'd like to see more behind the scenes of how to make it all work together. Thank you so much. So I love this question, Kylie, and first and foremost, we talk about all this stuff inside of the Business Lounge. It's exactly designed for online entrepreneurs, so people who are location independent. We talk about how to set up, your systems and processes, how to make sure that you have a framework for offering your services, how to set up the tools so that you're not just managing your client relationships, but you're also managing your marketing and your to-dos in a way that's both strategic and super effective. So if you haven't joined the Business Lounge yet, girl, you gotta come. Like, what are you doing? Seriously. Like, there's so much information out there in our community that I think would be super beneficial to you and teaches you exactly this, because I wish I could, just have hours and hours on end to talk to you about how to set this up, but unfortunately here on YouTube, we just don't have that ability. And if we did, it would be an insanely long video that would probably get no views. So anyway, I'd love to answer your question in as concise a fashion as I possibly can. So what is actually needed to launch a successful online business or location independent business aside from internet? So that is, of course, essential, super important for sure. But in terms of what is needed and what is required is, first of all, you have to know your stuff, and I think that this is one of the things that we tend to think of last, and it's the first thing that we should be thinking about is, who is our ideal client, and do we feel confident that we can deliver real tangible results for these people? And then the second step is just really building authority and making sure you're setting yourself up for success online. That means picking a medium to build your authority and share free content, free information, free value with your potential clients. So this is like day 1 stuff. You really need to get this down, and I think you're already doing that on YouTube. I could be wrong, but I think that you have a YouTube channel. And that's awesome. So something like a podcast or a blog or a YouTube channel should be your main hub, should be the place that you are building authority on, that you're sending people to, etc. But then when it comes to tools, it's super important that you have a customer relationship management system, or a CRM, and that could be really anything. I used Trello when I first started my business to manage all of my clients in one place. I still do that, and I think it's a really great kind of tool to utilize. But you can also get a dedicated CRM, like something like Soho or Agile CRM, that's one of my favorites. And there's a bunch of others, you know, like big boy tools like Entreport and Infusionsoft have CRM components, but it's basically a place where you can jot notes about your clients, schedule meetings, send invoices, all of that good stuff so that you don't get overwhelmed and bogged down. In terms of automation and making sure that you are, making things easier, it's really great to have a tool such as Time Tracker, you know, something like Toggle, or I think it's Dr. I forgot about this too. I think it's Dr. something. Oh shoot. I'll link it in the description box. But having some kind of task management tool or a timer that can actually help you stay on track, and not necessarily if, you know, you might not be billing clients on an hourly basis, and that's fine, but just internally for your own purposes, so you understand how you're managing your time and utilizing that appropriately, could be super, super helpful. In terms of automation, again, just kind of following up on that question, things like having, you know, your own accounting software that's hooked or built into your invoice tool that can, you know, bill clients automatically would be amazing. Highly recommend having something like QuickBooks or even Stripe. Stripe just came out with some amazing invoice and billing tools that you can utilize, and then that way you're billing your clients on autopilot. You know, they sign up for a monthly package or a monthly plan, or maybe it's a quarterly or annual. It just depends on your business model and what types of services or products you're offering. That would be like day one stuff. Definitely something that you need to have for any type of business, whether you're offering products, services, or programs. And the last tool that I highly recommend is having, you know, an email marketing tool, like you mentioned, ConvertKit. I love ConvertKit. It's my go-to email marketing tool. I've written a blog post about it. I'll link to it in the description box below, but I've used things like MailChimp and Aweber and ActiveCampaign, Entreport. I've used Infusionsoft. I've used GetResponse. I've used so many tools, and to be super transparent, like, ConvertKit has everything that I want and everything that I need. They just get the fundamentals. So I highly recommend using a tool like ConvertKit. And then if you maybe cannot afford that tool, or maybe you're just, and I'm not talking about you specifically, Kylie, but anyone, you're just getting started and maybe you don't have a lot of subscribers, MailerLite is a phenomenal tool. It's free right now for up to 1,000 subscribers. So again, we're going to link to all these tools in the blog post that accompanies this video/podcast, so highly recommend checking that out as well. And that can be an amazing automation tool where you're scheduling all of your marketing in terms of your email sequences, where you're following up with prospects and, you know, just sharing with them the value that you're creating every single week via your content. So that's super important. And then the last piece that I think is equally important is, you know, in terms of your marketing, setting up your social media on auto schedule, and then every day keeping the content fresh with some candid photos, some, you know, posts that you come up with, you know, in the kind of like that day. That's awesome. So that's what we do. We schedule our content, but then we also have, I personally go in every day and I post an update on my social media that's just in the moment, and that keeps things really fresh. So one of my favorite tools to use that is Buffer. I love CoSchedule as well. Both of those tools we've created tutorials around, so we'll be linking those as well, so you can check them out. And then that's really the gist of the tools that we use. We use Canva, you know, to design all of our graphics, and that's really helpful. But as much as I love tools, I like to keep it as tight as possible because I can get a little bit tool crazy. And so that's kind of, you know, the essentials, the basics. If you want to add on another layer that I think is really great, it's just Google Documents and spreadsheets and just a whole Google suite. So having, you know, that ability to communicate with people is amazing, especially if you have a team. You mentioned something about finding a VA. We do that. We communicate as a team, and we use Google Docs and Google Spreadsheets and you know, Google, I think it's called Slideshow, which is their presentation tool. So highly recommend doing that. And then in terms of finding a VA, I have a whole course around this about outsourcing. It's called the Outsourcing Formula, and it's inside the Business Lounge. You can access it for 59 bucks. It's just amazing. So I highly recommend going through that because there's a lot that goes into that specific question, and maybe that's something that we can talk about more here in the channel. But in terms of finding a VA, you know, whether you're finding a VA locally or domestically, or you're finding one abroad, is totally up to you and your budget. My VA lives in the Philippines. I actually have 3 team members in the Philippines, and I love them to death. So big shout out to Sam and to Pearl and AJ, who are amazing. And I found them through, well, they were referrals, but initially I found Pearl through onlinejobs.ph, which is the site that I recommend if you're looking for Filipino VAs, but you can also outsource to India and to London and, you know, just different countries. It's just up to you in terms of budget and what feels right and makes sense for your business. So I hope that I was able to answer that question. Kylie, thank you so much for asking it. All right, the next question comes from Pratush, and I'm not going to even attempt to pronounce your last name. I think it's your last name, but I love this question, and he posted, did cold email and cold calling die? And I think this is such a cool question. So we see a lot of marketing trends, especially in the online world, right? There's, you know, tons of different waves where anything from Facebook ads to blogging to chatbots and, you know, creating these amazing email automation campaigns, and there's always going to be trends. I don't think that, you know, cold calling and cold email is dead. I think that it still works for people, and especially if you're a service provider or a local business owner. All of those strategies are still helpful, and I don't want you to get so I think that this is another trend that we see a lot. It's like we have these amazing tools and these amazing channels, and then the next shiny thing comes in, and then we think that everything else is dead. And that's just not the case. It's rare that that actually happens. But that being said, why cold call and why email? You know, why cold email when you can use social media to build tangible relationships with your potential clients? I hate, personally, being pitched via email. On a cold email, I rarely respond to them. And then I also hate getting, you know, cold calls. Like, that's just so impersonal and so unnecessary in today's day and age. You know, if someone actually wants to build a relationship with me and my brand, they're going to message me on Instagram, they're going to message me on Facebook, they're going to try to reach out and build rapport, and then they're going to pitch me on, you know, their service or their product. And those are the people I say yes to because they've taken the time to build a relationship with me. So like, why do it when you have all these amazing tools at your disposal? It's just unnecessary at this point. But is it dead? No, I don't think it is. All right, so now let's talk about the next question here, and this one comes from Carlos. And Carlos says, your videos are looking so amazing. Thank you, Carlos. You're so sweet. Hope you're enjoying it here in Austin. I am. Thank you so much. My question is there such a thing as overposting on social media? I know I have to post regularly, but always worry about overposting. So Carlos, what a great question. I love this. Yes, there is such a thing as overposting on social media. And you know, it's rare that it happens, but you really just want to treat each individual platform respectfully, right? You want to respect the environment and respect what is considered a good practice on that platform. So for example, Twitter is a platform that moves super fast, so it's acceptable to post on Twitter every couple of minutes because people just don't see it. The average life cycle of a tweet is about 30 seconds to 2 minutes, and so it's acceptable on Twitter to post very frequently. And when I talk about very frequently, I know people who post over 60 times a day. I think that's a little excessive, but again, it's all about testing and experimenting with different strategies. That would be a huge no-no on Instagram, for example, right? Like, because people are seeing the content in their feed. Unlike Twitter, you cannot post that many times on Instagram. So just follow a couple of rules of thumb for each of those platforms and then test out what works for you. So for Instagram, I would keep it, you know, 1 to 3 times a day at the max and experiment with that because it could definitely increase your reach and your engagement or completely decrease it. You just have to test it out. With Facebook, you can post, you know, I would say 3 to 6 or 7 times a day. That's kind of where we sit and what we've seen really work. But again, it just depends on your individual strategy and your individual audience. They might not like that, so test and experiment. With Twitter, you can post a lot more frequently. Same with Pinterest. With Pinterest, you need to be posting at least 10 times a day. And so all of these are very important strategies that you need to be incorporating. But at the end of the day, they're only rules of thumb or benchmarks. There will always be an exception to a rule, and you have to test out what works for you. And so I would literally go in and test it week by week. You know, use 1 week and test posting 2 to 3 times on Instagram posting 1 time a day or 2 to 3 times a week, and test that out and do the same thing with your other social networks. So I hope that that's helpful, Carlos. Keep crushing it on YouTube. I'm excited to see what you have going on next. All right, and the final question comes from Darlington Jones Imagery, and he or she asks, would love your advice on time management, specifically on creating content. Would love specifics also. I did your content creation course and it's great, but I'm having a difficult time implementing because it requires so many resources. Blogs, newsletters, videos. It takes me about 2 weeks to work to get them all up each month. Planning, writing, distributing, promoting, it's crazy. So great question, and I feel like this is something that we all can relate to. You know, there's a lot of moving pieces, especially if you own an online business, or even if you don't. It's a lot. You know, marketing your business online can take a lot of energy and a lot of effort, and you have to be strategic about how you implement these strategies. So I would work your way up to more and more content. When I first started, I wasn't posting, you know, super frequently. 1 time a week, sometimes 2 times a month was all I could get out there, but I did it strategically. There is no reason why you should be spending 2 weeks creating your content. Like, something is wrong in your strategy where you're spending way too much time on things that are not essential. And what I mean non-essential is you're probably spending hours creating your videos or hours creating your blogs instead of batching them, which is what we teach inside of that course. So I really want you to take a look at where you're spending the majority of your time with your content creation and make adjustments. Again, using something like Toggle to track the time that you spend on specific tasks is super helpful. So what I like to do is I give myself a specific amount of time to record a video, to record a podcast, to record a blog post, to create social media content. And if I go over that time limit, it's done. Like, it is what it is. You know, it's gonna go out as it is. And that's not to say that, you know, you should put out content that is less than stellar, but I think that a lot of times we get stuck in perfectionism and we start creating like this picture perfect moment, and because you're in photography, I think that might be what's going on. So I love, I heard Gary Vaynerchuk talk about this years ago, and he said you got to document, you know, your content instead of having to create it and polish it every time. And that's a strategy that I've been wanting to incorporate more and more and more in my business, and as I have, it makes a huge difference. So don't worry about getting everything, you know, polished and perfect. Just ship it out. I do not want you to be spending half of your month creating your content. That is outrageous. So what I would do is sit down and look at where you're spending the majority of your time and then cut. You know, whether that be, you know, getting some help with outsourcing some of the non-essential tasks like creating graphics, editing your videos, maybe even transcribing your videos into blog posts. Those are all things that I do. I never spent that much time creating my content because I had a team, but before I had a team, I just outsourced it in a project-based kind of system. So I would go on Fiverr and I would ask, you know, if I could, not ask, but I would purchase, you know, one of those $5 plans to get my photos edited or my social media graphics created or a video edited, and that helped so much with the time issue. And then I also looked at my whole strategy and said, you know what? I can't want this to be perfect. If I'm spending, and this is no joke, I used to spend like 10-15 hours editing a vlog. That no longer happens. That is not a good use of my time. That's insane. So you need to find ways to control your own like perfectionist syndrome and make sure that you are setting a schedule that works for you and decrease it over time. You know, maybe next month you only spend 1 week getting everything together instead of spending 2 weeks. Make a plan. Focus on a schedule and then stick to it no matter what, and outsource what is not essential. So I hope that that helps you. Alright guys, we have so many other questions that I think we're going to break this down into a part 2 of this Q&A so that we don't go too long. But thank you so much for participating. These questions were amazing. I had a blast answering them, and hopefully they were useful and valuable to you. Be on the lookout for another Q&A episode coming up very soon. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't liked and subscribed to this channel, please make sure you do. We have tons of amazing videos coming up for you guys every single week, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye for now.
So, you know how building an online business can be totally overwhelming? You're probably learning new strategies from YouTube, other blogs, podcasts, and taking courses that are all great, but sometimes give you contradictory and even confusing advice. I get it. It's hard to filter through which strategies you should be implementing right now to grow your online business versus the ones that you should stow away for the future, when you're actually ready to implement them. And that's exactly why we designed the Online Success Path. Inside, we broke down the 6 stages of a successful online business: validate, launch, hustle, breakthrough, profit, and scale. And we designed a complete roadmap inside the Business Lounge membership just for you. Inside each stage, you will find a step-by-step action guide tailored to the specific challenges you'll encounter during the stage of business you are currently at, complete with getting started tips so you can know exactly what to expect, video tutorials so that you can implement new strategies, action items so you stay on track, plus full-blown courses to help you focus only on the tasks that will accelerate your progress right now and take you to the next level in your business journey while keeping you accountable and overwhelm-free. So if you're ready to take your online business to the next level, get started at jointheblounge.com.